Have you ever stopped to wonder why we actually believe the things we believe? Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. We are taking a truly fascinating journey today into the evolution of human belief systems. Literally since the dawn of time, humans have looked up at the stars and just wondered about the forces governing our universe. So today, we're going to unpack the incredible philosophical taxonomy of exactly how we've defined those forces over millennia. It is quite a ride.
It really all boils down to this one ultimate question. A question that has sparked thousands of years of fierce debate. And listen, this isn't just about faith. It's a massive intellectual quest to understand the very fabric of our universe. When a believer and a non-believer get into an argument, what exactly is the concept they're arguing over? What is the actual nature of the God you believe in, or perhaps the one you don't believe in?
Now, to untangle all this dense theological jargon, and don't worry at all, we are going to make it completely accessible today, we're drawing directly from some fantastic source material provided by IGNOU, the People's University. Their course material on the problem of affirming God's existence offers just a brilliant, structured breakdown of these concepts, and we'll be using it as our trusty roadmap today.
And here is that roadmap for our explainer. We'll be hitting 1. Defining the divine, 2. The realm of many, 3. The shift to one, 4. Asking where is the creator, 5. The pantheistic synthesis, and finally 6. The skeptical alternatives. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. Defining the divine. Let's take a look at how human fear and sheer awe of nature birthed our earliest God consciousness.
Section 2. The realm of many, focusing on polytheism and its variations. This is the era where early humanity assigned specific deities to control distinct facets of nature.
What is so absolutely fascinating about this is how these polytheistic societies handled meeting people who worshipped completely different gods. They essentially did one of three things. They'd say, oh, hey, your God is just our God with a different name. Or they'd simply adopt the new God right into their own pantheon. Or third, they'd just accept that the outside God definitely existed, but they wouldn't actively worship it themselves. This brilliantly shows just how highly adaptable polytheism was. It naturally promoted a great deal of religious freedom and assimilation.
Now, within this realm of many, we find some amazing variations. Take categorizes, for example, which literally means one by one. This actually solved a very practical, everyday human problem. You might believe in many gods, sure, but you only pray to the rain god during a drought, right? Or you make an offering to the goddess of education right before a massive exam. It's highly transactional. Every single god becomes supremely important, but just in turn, depending on exactly what you need at that very moment.
But contrast that for a second with monolatry. In this system, you still totally believe many gods exist, but you decide that only one is actually worthy of your worship. So the crucial point here is that exclusivity starts to creep in. Monolators consistently worship one deity, and often just discard the others entirely. The source text makes a point to note that this shift is critical, because this is exactly where we begin to see the very first seeds of strict religious fundamentalism taking root.
Section 3. The shift to one. Resolving the chaos of many. So why did human thought eventually hit a philosophical wall and move away from many gods?
Well, it comes down to science and order. Humans naturally craved unity. We were seeking a single underlying principle to explain the universe. Because think about it, if entirely different independent gods control different domains, how could we possibly have uniform universal laws of physics and chemistry? This realization led to a clear evolutionary timeline of belief, moving from polytheism, the belief in many, through a transitional phase called henotheism, and ultimately toward monotheism, the belief in one, only God.
That middle step there, henotheism, is such a vital stepping stone. It was incredibly prominent in the early Vedas. It's essentially the worship of a single supreme God, while still completely accepting that other, lesser deities are out there doing their thing. The great scholar Max Muller famously described it as monotheism in principle and polytheism in fact. It was the perfect bridge between the sheer chaos of the many and the absolute unity of the one. And that brings us directly to monotheism, which surprisingly actually comes in two distinct flavors. You've got inclusive monotheism, like certain Hindu denominations, which says there is one supreme deity, and all other gods are really just different names or aspects of it. Then you have exclusive monotheism, which argues there is strictly one God, and absolutely all others are false. If you think about the major religions today, historically, as our source notes, this exclusivity often resulted in less religious tolerance compared to those older, much more flexible polytheistic systems.
Section 4. Where is the creator?
Let's explore deism and pantheism. Because once you establish there is only one God, you naturally have to ask, is this God inside the universe or outside looking in?
One major answer to that is deism, which was a massive product of the highly rational 18th century. Deists completely reject miracles and emotional dogma. Instead, they believe in what's called a watchmaker God. This is a purely logical creator who built the finely tuned machine of the universe, wound it all up, and then just completely separated himself from it. In this view, God is fully transcendent. He sits completely outside of creation, just letting it run strictly on the laws of physics.
But, as you might have guessed, deism has a pretty glaring logical gap. If God created the universe just to leave it entirely alone to run on its own laws, why feel the necessity to create it in the first place? An absent, indifferent watchmaker God feels, well, far too distant. It ultimately just fails to satisfy that deep human craving for an intimate, personal connection with the divine.
So, naturally, the philosophical pendulum swings to the exact opposite extreme, pantheism. This is heavily found in the philosophy of Spinoza and is beautifully captured in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad with the Sanskrit phrase aham brahmasmi, which means, I am Brahman. Pantheism argues that God and the physical universe are exactly the same thing. God doesn't transcend nature at all, God is completely immanent within it. God literally is the world.
But pantheism runs into its own major logical trap for sure. If everything is God, and God is literally everything, how on earth do we explain the existence of evil? If nature itself is completely divine, human freedom just vanishes into this rigid block universe. We lose the ability to separate God from worldly evil, and that completely shatters the ethical aims of religion. It's a huge problem.
Section 5. The Panentheistic Synthesis. Let's look at a brilliant philosophical attempt to find a middle course here.
The distinction here is subtle, but it is massive. As we said, pantheism says the universe is God, but panentheism, which literally translates to all in God, says the universe is in God, but God is also greater than the universe. God interpenetrates every single part of nature, making him immanent, but his consciousness extends far, far beyond it, making him transcendent as well.
The philosopher Charles Hartshorne offered this absolutely stunning biology analogy to explain how this works. Imagine God as a larger, conscious body, and we are the semi-autonomous cells operating within it. Just like your skin cells or your blood cells act totally independently of your conscious mind, we possess true individual freedom. Yet we still exist entirely within the divine being, who is, of course, something more than just the sum of the physical cells. It is a remarkably elegant way to balance human free will with an all-encompassing divine presence.
Section 6. The skeptical alternatives. What actually happens when thinkers find unresolvable contradictions in all these balancing acts?
Well, skepticism emerges, and this leads us to two main alternatives. First, you have atheism, which completely rejects the existence of God, relying entirely on materialism and science to explain the universe. And then you have agnosticism, coined by T.H. Huxley as not-knowism. It's the position of suspended belief. Agnostics really doubt our human capacity to ever truly comprehend metaphysical reality. They essentially argue that based on the absolute limits of human knowledge, whether God exists or not is just inherently unknowable.
And that brings us to the end of our philosophical journey today. We have traced the incredible evolution of human thought, from the fear-driven worship of many to the scientific push for one, through the distant watchmaker, the unified block universe, and finally the divine body. It leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought. If human belief has continually evolved to solve the philosophical gaps of the past, what is our understanding of the universe going to look like tomorrow? Keep questioning, keep exploring, and thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.